The transport ship shook hard as it docked with Station Helix 9. Inside, 40 new recruits held onto their seats and waited for the doors to open. They came from many different worlds. Some had shells. Some had tentacles. Some breathed through tubes connected to special tanks. All of them were nervous. All of them had heard stories about the Galactic Military Academy. Ha sat in the back row. She was a small woman with black hair tied behind her head and calm brown eyes that watched everything but reacted to nothing. She wore the simple uniform of a new recruit. On her shoulder was a patch showing a blue and green planet, Earth. The aliens near her had moved to other seats during the journey. They did not speak to her. They did not look at her. They simply kept their distance, the way animals stay away from something they cannot understand but know is dangerous. The doors opened with a hiss of pressure. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of metal and recycled oxygen. One by one, the recruits walked out into a massive hall with walls that stretched up higher than any building on Earth. Lights floated in the air above them, casting everything in a pale blue glow. Walked with the others, her footsteps quiet on the metal floor. She kept her hands behind her back and her eyes forward. She had learned long ago that predators watched for movement. The best way to survive was to be still until it was time to move. At the front of the hall stood a line of instructors. They were tall and powerful, each one a warrior from a species known for fighting. But one instructor stood apart from the others. He was taller, wider, and covered in scales that glowed faintly with inner light. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His eyes were the color of amber, and they moved across the recruits like a hunter choosing which prey to eat first. His name was Commander. He was one of the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. On his chest plate he wore small metal symbols. Each one represented a kill. There were 17 of them. Had trained soldiers at this academy for 30 years. He had broken thousands of recruits. He had killed many more in battle. He believed that the strong survived and the weak died, and he had spent his whole life proving this was true. His amber eyes stopped moving when he saw. She was so small. Her skin was soft and thin. She had no claws, no scales, no armor of any kind. She looked like something that would break if he squeezed too hard, and on her shoulder was that patch, that blue and green sphere. Earth smiled slowly. His teeth were sharp and many. He had killed humans before, 3 of them in fact. The first was an explorer who had wandered into space. The man had begged for his life in a language did not understand. It had taken less than a minute to end him. The second was a merchant who thought words could save him. They could not. The third was a soldier from one of the human colony ships. That one had been trained, supposedly. He had lasted 12 seconds. Humans were weak. Everyone in the galaxy knew this. They came from a planet that tried to kill them every day, and somehow they had survived, but survival was not the same as strength. They had no natural weapons. Their bodies broke easily. They moved slowly compared to real predators. And yet other species feared them. Did not understand this fear. He thought it was foolish. Humans were just animals that had learned to use tools. Take away their machines and their weapons, and they were nothing. He watched walk with the other recruits. She did not look around with wonder like the others. She did not shake with fear. She simply walked, calm and steady, as if she had done this 1,000 times before. This annoyed. New recruits should be afraid. They should understand their place. He stepped forward and the hall fell silent. His voice boomed through the space, amplified by technology built into the walls. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," he said. "Most of you will fail. Some of you will die. The few who survive will become warriors worthy of serving the compact." He walked slowly down the line of recruits, looking at each one. Some trembled. Some looked away. Some stood tall and tried to look brave, but he could smell their fear. He stopped in front of. She looked up at him. The top of her head barely reached his chest. Her brown eyes met his amber ones without flinching. "What is your name?" asked. "Ha," she said. Her voice was quiet and even. "Ha," he repeated, making the name sound small. "Do you know how many of your kind I have killed?" "No," she said. "3," he held up 3 of his fingers. 3 humans, all of them begged before the end. All of them died screaming. The other recruits shifted away from them both. The tension in the hall was thick enough to taste. Did not move. She did not blink. She simply looked at him with those calm brown eyes and said nothing. "Do you have nothing to say?" asked. "No," said. Leaned closer. His breath was hot and smelled of meat. "You should be afraid, little human. You should be very afraid." Tilted her head slightly. It was a small movement, barely noticeable, but something in it made pause. It was the way a predator tilts its head before it strikes. "Fear is useful," said quietly, "but only if you use it correctly." She turned and walked to her assigned place in line, leaving standing alone. For the first time in many years, the commander did not know what to say. The mess hall of Station Helix 9 was a massive room filled with long tables and floating lights. Hundreds of recruits sat eating food designed for their different bodies. Some ate meat that was still moving. Some drank thick liquids through tubes. Some absorbed nutrients through their skin. The air was full of strange smells and stranger sounds. Sat alone at a small table in the corner. She had brought her own food from Earth in sealed containers. Tonight she was eating kimbap, rice rolled with vegetables and egg inside dried seaweed. She used metal chopsticks that had belonged to her grandmother. They were old and worn smooth from years of use. The other recruits stayed far away from her table. It was not because they hated her. It was something deeper than that. Every species in the galaxy had ancient instincts that told them when something was dangerous. When they looked at the small human woman eating her simple food, those instincts screamed at them to run. They did not understand why. She looked so harmless, but their bodies knew something their minds did not. The doors of the mess hall opened with a loud sound. Commander walked in, followed by 5 of his senior cadets. They were all like him, tall and powerful with glowing scales and 4 arms each. They moved through the room like kings walking through a crowd of peasants. The hall fell silent. Everyone stopped eating. Everyone watched. Looked around the room until his amber eyes found. He smiled his sharp-toothed smile and walked toward her table. His heavy footsteps echoed in the quiet. Did not look up. She continued eating her kimbap, picking up each piece with her grandmother's chopsticks and chewing slowly. She acted as if the most decorated warrior in the sector was not walking toward her with murder in his eyes. Reached her table and placed 2 of his 4 hands on its surface. He leaned down until his face was close to hers. His scales glowed brighter when he was angry, and right now they were very bright indeed. "I have been thinking about you, little human," he said. His voice was loud enough for everyone in the hall to hear. He wanted them to hear. He wanted them to watch. "I have been thinking about your weakness." Picked up another piece of kimbap. "Your species confuses me," continued. "You come from a world that should have killed you. Extreme temperatures, deadly predators, diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Your own planet is trying to murder you every single day." He stood up straight and spread his 4 arms wide. "And yet you survived. How? Not through strength. Look at you. You are soft. You are small. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. A child of my species could tear you apart with its bare hands." Some of the other laughed. The sound was harsh and ugly. "I will tell you how you survived," said. "You survived through tricks, through deception, through hiding and running and using tools because your bodies are too weak to fight. You are not warriors. You are prey that learned to make weapons." Set down her chopsticks. She looked up for the first time. "Are you finished?" she asked. The laughter stopped. The silence in the hall became heavier. Scales flickered with different colors. This was a sign of confusion among his kind. He had expected fear. He had expected anger. He had not expected this calm, quiet question. "You do not understand your position," he said slowly. "I have killed 3 of your kind, 3 humans who thought they could stand against the first one screamed for mercy. The second one cried like an infant. The third one was a trained soldier, and he died in 12 seconds." He leaned close again. "I am telling you this so you understand what will happen if you displease me. I am telling you this so you know your place." Looked at him with her calm brown eyes. Then she did something that no one expected. She smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. "My grandmother," she said, "fought in a war when she was 16 years old. She killed 47 enemy soldiers with a rifle she stole from a dead man. When she ran out of bullets, she used a knife. When the knife broke, she used her hands. She weighed 43 kilograms. She was 5 feet tall. She lived to be 91 years old." Picked up her chopsticks again. She never talked about the people she killed. Not at dinner. Not ever. She said that bragging about death was something only small men did. She looked directly into his amber eyes. She also said that the loudest beast in the forest was usually the weakest. The truly dangerous ones were always quiet. For a long moment no one moved, no one breathed. Then went back to eating her kimbap, as if nothing had happened. Stood frozen. His scales were cycling through colors so fast that they almost looked white. No one had ever spoken to him this way. No one had ever dared. He wanted to kill her right there. He wanted to rip her apart in front of everyone and show them what happened to those who disrespected him. But something stopped him. Something in her eyes. Something in the way she sat so perfectly still. For just a moment, Commander felt something he had not felt in 30 years. He felt afraid. He turned and walked away without another word. His senior cadets followed, confused and silent. Finished her meal, cleaned her grandmother's chopsticks, and put them away carefully. Tomorrow, she knew, the real fight would begin. The official challenge arrived at its quarters before the morning meal. It was delivered by a small robot that spoke in a flat, emotionless voice. The document was written in the standard galactic language, but could read it clearly. Commander had filed for an instructional demonstration. This was an old rule that allowed senior staff to fight recruits under the excuse of teaching them a lesson. The rules were simple. Both fighters would enter the arena. Both fighters could choose any weapons or armor they wanted. The fight would continue until one fighter could not continue, surrendered, or died. Medical teams would be standing by, but they could not enter until the fight was over. At the bottom of the document was a place for her to sign. If she refused, she would be dismissed from the academy for cowardice. If she signed, she would face the most dangerous warrior on the station. Signed without reading the details. She already knew what they would say. The arena was a massive circular space in the heart of the station. It had been built centuries ago for exactly this purpose. The floor was made of a special metal that cleaned itself between fights. The walls were high and smooth so that fighters could not escape. Around the edges, thousands of seats rose up like a mountain, and by the time arrived, most of them were filled. Word had spread fast. Against the commander. Everyone wanted to see this. Most of them wanted to see the human die. A few were simply curious. A very small number were quietly hopping for something else. Entered from the east gate. She wore the standard training uniform with no modifications. She carried no weapons. She wore no armor. Her hands were empty. Her feet were bare on the cold metal floor. The crowd made sounds of confusion and mockery. Was she trying to die? Had she given up already? What kind of fool faced a warrior with nothing but her bare skin? From the west gate, Commander entered. He was magnificent in a terrifying way. His ceremonial armor covered every part of his body except his head, and it glowed with the same light as his scales. In each of his 4 hands he carried a blade, a weapon that could cut through steel like water. His eyes were bright with hatred and excitement. He had been waiting for this moment since the mess hall. He was going to destroy her. He was going to make it slow. He was going to make sure everyone remembered what happened when a weak little human dared to challenge the strong. Walked to the center of the arena and waited, walked to meet him. When they stood facing each other, the difference between them was almost funny. He was nearly 3 times her height. His body was covered in weapons and armor. She looked like a child standing before a monster. "You came with nothing," said. "Do you want to die that badly?" Did not answer. She was looking at him but not at his face. Her eyes moved across his body slowly like someone reading a map. She looked at the joints of his armor, the placement of his weight, the way he held his blades, the small movements he made without thinking. "It does not matter," said. "I will enjoy this." Shifted her stance. It was a small movement. Her feet spread slightly apart. Her knees bent just a little. Her hands came up in front of her body, relaxed and open. It was not a fighting pose that recognized. It was not a fighting pose that anyone in the audience recognized. But somewhere in the stands, an old warrior from a distant world sat forward in his seat. He was a Moravian with 3 eyes, and he had fought alongside humans during the Fringe Wars 20 years ago. He recognized that stance. He had seen it before. His 3 eyes went wide. "Oh no," he whispered to himself. "She knows the old ways." The bell rang. Attacked immediately. He was fast, much faster than anything his size should be. His 4 blades came at from 4 different directions at once. It was a killing pattern he had used 100 times before. No one had ever survived it. His blades cut through empty air. Was not there anymore. She had moved forward, not backward. She had dropped low and slid under his attack like water flowing around a rock. Before could understand what was happening, she was behind him. Her elbow hit the nerve cluster at the back of his leg. Her palm struck the pressure point under his 3rd arm. The movements were small and precise, like a doctor pressing exactly the right places. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary force. His left side went numb, his leg buckled, his arm dropped to his side useless. The crowd went silent. Spun around, slashing with his remaining blades, but was already moving again. She circled him like smoke, always where he was not looking, always just out of reach. Every time he turned, she was somewhere else. He was getting angry now. His scales were flashing red and orange. He roared and attacked wildly, trying to hit her with pure speed and power. His blades carved patterns in the air that would have destroyed anything they touched. They touched nothing. Was studying him, learning him. Every attack he made showed her something new. Every movement told her where he was weak. She was not just dodging. She was reading him like a book written in a language only she understood. "Stand still and fight," screamed. Stopped moving. She was directly in front of him now, close enough to touch. "Okay," she said quietly. Then her fingers found the gap in his armor at the base of his skull. The one spot that never protected because no species was fast enough to reach it. She did not strike. She simply pressed, hard enough to make stars explode behind his eyes. "Yield," she said. Did not yield. His pride was too big. His anger was too hot. He had never surrendered in his life, and he was not going to start now, especially not to a small human woman with no weapons and no armor. He threw his body backward with all his strength, trying to crush her against the arena floor. It was a desperate move, the kind of attack that relied on size and weight rather than skill, weighed less than a quarter of what he did. When he landed on her, she should have been destroyed. She was not destroyed. Humans had spent millions of years learning how to survive things that should kill them. Their ancestors had fought bears with sticks. They had hunted mammoths across frozen lands. They had survived falls from great heights and attacks from predators with claws and teeth. The human body was not strong like a body. It was something else. It was tough. It could bend without breaking. It could take damage and keep going. Absorbed the impact. The breath rushed out of her lungs. Her ribs screamed with pain, but she did not stop moving. As landed on top of her, she wrapped her legs around his torso and locked her arms around his neck. Her body coiled around him like a snake. Struggled, he still had two working arms and he tried to grab her to pull her off to break her bones. But every time he moved, she tightened her grip. Every time he shifted his weight, she adjusted her position. She was not fighting him with strength. She was fighting him with patience. The crowd was completely silent. No one had ever seen anything like this. The greatest warrior on the station was on the ground, and a tiny human was wrapped around him like a second skin, and no matter what he did, he could not get free. "Let me tell you something about my species," said. Her voice was calm even though her body was screaming with pain. "We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We do not have claws or scales or four arms." She shifted her grip. Something in his shoulder made a popping sound. One of his remaining good arms stopped working. "But we are the most stubborn things in the universe," she continued. "We do not give up. We do not stop. We survived an ice age. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars that burned entire continents. We survived everything our planet threw at us, and we survived everything we threw at each other." Another shift, another pop screamed. "Your problem," said, "is that you think killing makes you strong. You think the number of bodies behind you means something, but killing is easy. Anyone can kill. The hard thing is knowing when not to kill. The hard thing is winning without destroying." She tightened her legs around his torso. His breathing became difficult. "My grandmother taught me this. She could have killed 100 soldiers, 200, 1,000. She had the skill. She had the will, but she stopped at 47 because that was enough. She understood something you never learned." Could barely move now. His four arms were useless. His body was running out of oxygen. His vision was getting dark around the edges. "The strongest warrior is not the one who wins the most fights," said softly, directly into his ear. "The strongest warrior is the one who knows which fights to walk away from." She released him. It happened so suddenly that the crowd gasped, unwrapped herself from his body and rolled away, rising to her feet in one smooth motion. She was bruised. She was hurting, but she was standing. Collapsed on the arena floor. He tried to get up, but his arms would not obey him. He tried to speak, but he could not find the air. He lay there, broken not in body but in spirit, and he understood for the first time in his life what it felt like to be completely defeated. Walked toward the exit gate. The crowd was still silent, still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. She stopped and looked back at. "I counted 6 times in the last 30 seconds when I could have killed you," she said. 6 different moments when your life was in my hands. I did not take any of them." She turned away. "My grandmother taught me that too. She said that mercy is not weakness. Mercy is the greatest strength there is. Anyone can end a life. It takes real power to spare one." She walked out of the arena. Behind her, lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling. The medical teams rushed in to help him, but he barely noticed them. He was thinking about the 3 humans he had killed. He was remembering their faces. He was wondering, for the first time, if maybe they had let him win. In the stands, the old Moravian warrior with 3 eyes nodded slowly to himself. "Yes," he whispered, "she knows the old ways, and she knows something more than that." He stood up and began making his way to the Academy administration office. He had a request to file. He wanted to be this human's new instructor. He wanted to see what else she could do. The medical bay kept commander for 3 days. The doctors worked on his arms, repairing the nerve damage that had caused with her precise strikes. They told him he would recover fully, that within a few weeks he would be able to fight again. But everyone knew that something had changed in him, something that medicine could not fix. His reputation was destroyed. The story spread across the station within hours and across the sector within days. The most decorated combat instructor at the Galactic Military Academy had been taken apart by a first-year recruit. A human. A woman half his size with no weapons and no armor. The official report called it a training accident. No one believed it. Was reassigned to a new instructor on the second day. His name was Instructor, and he was a Moravian with 3 eyes and skin that looked like old stone. He was quiet and patient, and he had served alongside humans during the Fringe Wars 20 years before. He had seen what they could do. He had learned to respect them in ways that most aliens never would. "I watched your fight," he told during their first meeting. "I have some questions." Waited. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "My grandfather taught me," said. "He learned from his father who learned from his father. It is an old style, very old." It looked like you were reading his body, like you knew where he would be weak before he moved. "That is part of it. My grandfather said that every body tells a story. You just have to learn how to read it." Instructor nodded slowly. His 3 eyes blinked at different times, which was a sign of deep thought among his people. "I would like to learn this," he said. "Would you teach me?" Looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled just a little. "I can try," she said. On the 4th day, was eating in the mess hall when someone approached her table. It was a young, barely past adolescence. His scales were still soft with youth, and they flickered with nervous colors as he stood there, waiting for her to notice him. Looked up from her food. "Yes," she said. "My name is," the young said. I was Commander's student, one of his best." Said nothing, she waited. "Is it true," asked, "what they say you did, that you defeated him without weapons, that you broke him without killing him?" "I did not break him," said. "I just showed him something he did not want to see." "What?" "That strength is not enough. That power is not enough. That you can be the biggest and the strongest and still lose to someone who understands things you do not." Scales flickered faster. He was struggling with something, some battle inside himself. "Can you teach me?" he finally asked. "Can you teach me what you know?" Looked at him for a long time. He was young. He was scared. He had been raised to believe that might made right, that the strong ruled and the weak died. Everything she had done in that arena had shaken the foundation of his world. She pointed to the seat across from her. "Sit down," she said. Sat. "First lesson," said. "The most dangerous thing in this galaxy is not the species with the biggest claws or the most advanced weapons. It is the one that never stops learning. The one that is always watching, always thinking, always adapting." She pushed one of her dumplings across the table to him. "Second lesson, always eat before you train. Empty stomach makes you slow and stupid." Picked up the dumpling carefully. He had never eaten human food before. He sniffed it, then took a small bite. His eyes widened with surprise. "This is good," he said. "My grandmother's recipe," said. They ate together in silence for a few minutes. Then something strange happened. Another recruit approached the table. This one was in from a distant world, with many legs and eyes that reflected the light like gems. Behind her came 2 amphibians, their skin glistening with moisture. Behind them came a gas dweller in its containment suit, floating just above the floor. One by one they gathered around the table. One by one they sat down. "We want to learn too," they said. "We want to learn what you know." Looked around at them. They were so different from each other. Different species, different worlds, different bodies, but they all had the same look in their eyes, the same hunger, the same hope. "Okay," said. "I will teach you what I can, but I warn you now it will not be easy. What I know takes years to learn. It takes patience. It takes pain. It takes failing over and over again until you finally understand." "We are ready," said. Smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and full. "Good," she said. "Then we start tomorrow. For now, eat." She shared her food with them. It was not much, but it was enough. And as they ate together, something began that would change the galaxy forever. Years later, when historians wrote about the Battle of Crimson Nebula, They would note that the force that saved the Helix Compact was led by a mixed-species unit unlike any other. They fought with a style that emphasized patience and precision. They won battles that should have been impossible. They called themselves the Earth Method, and their founder was Fleet Admiral Ha. She never gave interviews about her past. When reporters asked about her legendary fight with Commander, she would simply shrug. "He talked too much," she would say. "That was his first mistake." And when they asked what his second mistake was, she would smile her small smile and say nothing at all. Some lessons, after all, are better left unspoken.